Welcome back. I hope you're having a fantastic day. We're going to do a quick update on the markets today. Markets were up a little bit. Bitcoin had a little bit of a rebound. Everybody is waiting. Investors are watching and waiting for the Fed and Jay Powell's testimony tomorrow. After the Fed meeting, their two-day meeting today and tomorrow, and then he'll come out with the Fed minutes and his thoughts and comments on interest rate policy guidance going forward. Markets were up a little bit today. Dow Jones up 1.8%, 599 points. S&P up 89 points for 2.14%. NASDAQ up almost 3%, 367 points. So a nice little bounce coming off of a down last couple of trading days. Tomorrow will likely open potentially up, and we'll see how it ends up going into the close, but I'm expecting a sell-off into the close. Investors are kind of, putting a little risk on the table, kind of buying up this little bounce, a little bit of short covering, things like that ahead of the Fed meeting. All expectations are for a 1/4 point rate hike, which is probably what they're going to do. So markets will probably sell off after the testimony tomorrow going into the afternoon. So we'll see how that setup looks. But again, the Federal Reserve, all eyes are on that as rates rise. But the unique challenges the Fed faces, obviously inflation with the war situation is going to get worse. Because of food, fuel, things like that. Energy is going to definitely drive inflation a little bit higher. So there's a dark cloud of uncertainty over the meeting, but at the end of the day, they know they're at zero. So a lot of different comments on what the Fed is facing. That was Jim Caron of Morgan Stanley. And the economy is coming into full employment rapidly and inflation is way too high. He added, you add all that up and that means they've got to raise rates. The degree of uncertainty is extraordinary. And then we had some comments from Blackstone, Rick Rieder. He said he thinks the world really changed with this war, and it would have been an inflation that would have come down by the middle of this year. I don't agree with that, but some people still think that the pandemic inflation was on its way down. Of course, we have China back on lockdown again, which is going to create some more supply chain issues and potential inflationary impacts as well. But Rick Rieder said that he thinks inflation would have normalized by the end of the year, and that the impact on energy, commodities, and food are real. And he just thinks that it really changed the inflationary paradigm to be significantly worse. So the Fed is looking at the potential for a lot of rate hikes, and Jay Powell is very good at his messaging, and he probably will not indicate any expectations other than that they will be nimble and humble and react with the data, which is what he always says. So I don't expect he'll give any kind of guidance in terms of what interest rate policy is going to look like moving forward. Mark Zandi of Moody's Analytics said that the Fed is desperately trying to balance things and avoid going into a recession. It really does depend on what happens with the stock market, credit spreads, sentiment, and whatever other geopolitical problems come down the road. But Mark Zandi, economist for Moody's Analytics, does not anticipate a recession this year. So the economy is pretty strong. The employment situation is pretty strong. So recession doesn't seem like it's on the table right now. So we just have to wait and see how things shake out. And here's what I'm looking at for Bitcoin. Bitcoin was up on the day, but a couple of things to look at here is Bitcoin is continuing to put in lower highs. So yesterday we closed on what would be the equivalent of a lower high, and it did put in a lower low. So that's indicative of still of a downtrend versus looking for that higher low in those lower highs. And right now it put in a lower high lower than here and a lower low lower than this last one over here. Of course, in the overall trend, it's still up, but this is creating somewhat of a bear flag for a potential breakdown at some point with this pattern that Bitcoin's kind of in right now. So we'll have to see how that plays out. And there isn't any real catalyst on the table right now with the Fed raising interest rates, eliminating its bond purchase program. There really is nothing to drive the price of the markets, the price of Bitcoin, cryptos, anything like that anytime soon. Now, this triangle is created using the wicks. I didn't use the closes. And when you do that over here, looking at last year in that June, July timeframe, and you try to take a peek at what was going on over here. And this little channel that was created off the wicks last year before the final leg down was kind of a rising wedge to a certain degree as well. If you use the wicks, at least a rising channel somewhat before this breakdown here, when it broke the lower line of that channel. Price has not come back down to the wicks over here on this side. So if you use the closes, which is what I generally like to use, is the closes versus the wicks, the channel starts to look, the flag, triangle, whatever you want to call it, starts to look a little bit different, bouncing along the bottom of it, testing the upper range. So I kind of like this a little bit better than what we were looking at over here. And if you bring that to bear over here, you get a little bit of a different look on the way this pattern looked last year if you use the closes versus, and this was a falling broadening wedge that ultimately ended up breaking out. So a little bit different last year over here than what we have right here. But I kind of feel like we're consolidating here for a little bit of a breakdown to retest potentially that $35,000 level, not really considering it, exactly as it's drawn, but that $35,000, $36,000 level is potentially a macro low, all things being equal, before we could see price rebound for Bitcoin moving into the remainder of the year. So we'll just have to see how this plays out. And that's kind of what I'm watching. And like we talked about yesterday, this could potentially just be a longer term consolidation before we get our next leg up. We have not had the retracement that we've been looking for. This could potentially be it right now, given the environment that we're in with the Fed. It's a whole new environment here. Bitcoin has never lived in an environment without zero interest rate policy and quantitative easing from the Fed. So this will be the ultimate test for Bitcoin and crypto to see where it goes. The on-chain analytics are always bullish. I do look at on-chain analytics. The problem is they're lagging, sometimes weeks, sometimes months, and they always look bullish. So it's kind of hard to use that. So I like to look at price action. I like to look at the global macro environment to kind of make a decision on which way things are going. Ultimately, long-term, I think we're in good shape. And I think Bitcoin is obviously going to, if it holds its value here, then there's a good case being built for more higher value on a long-term standpoint from sustainability of the asset, as well as some other core cryptos like Ethereum. If we look at the hourly here, let's take a look at the hourly price action on today. Bitcoin had a nice pop today. Let's see what that looked like. It's about 5%, gave up a little bit, bounced back. Ethereum's kind of doing the same thing. All of the altcoins, major altcoins, are all kind of doing the same thing, anywhere from 5 to 9%. And a lot of them kind of dancing around right now, figuring out where they're going to settle out for the day. So we'll have to watch and see what the Fed does tomorrow and how Powell comes out. Well, my expectations are, well, this was all rally into the Fed meeting, because expectations are for only a 1/4 point rate hike. They don't expect the Fed's going to give a lot of guidance in terms of what they're going to do moving forward, other than being nimble, being humble, reacting with the data to kind of keep markets calm so investors have some certainty and clarity. And then that will most likely, like I said, markets will most likely open up or level in the morning, maybe a little bit of a pop prior to the Fed's testimony. When Powell talks, markets will sort of react and then probably sell off in the afternoon and kind of give up that little bounce relief rally that we had today in markets. We didn't really take a look at the Dow Jones and S&P, but just a little bounce in those markets today, little rebound rally, short covering, things like that. So we'll see what that holds tomorrow. We'll keep our eyes on it, and I will be back tomorrow afternoon with Thinking Crypto to kind of give some thoughts on the markets and thoughts on what Chair Powell's testimony looks like. So I will see you tomorrow in the next video.